Todd Barton, and I'm really stoked to be here, and I have to thank some shout-outs right at the top. Thanks to Eric Fox at Buchla USA for bringing me. I'm also manning the booth there, but also at the booth, boy, he has three great people. Wes, they all can do all of the Buchlas that you see there, but today Wes is doing the red panel. Actually just is rocking the new old 100 San Francisco Tape Music Center full-size Buchla 100. She made a really great patch on that. And Charles C. Holzer is doing Easel 200E, and so is Ashley. I mean, they're all doing it, but go by and check out what they're up to. And they also know more about this stuff than I do. So, okay. Next order of business is, if you look at your yellow sheet, it says, you are here to hear me talk about, where is it? Follow the sound, semicolon, which didn't make it in there, is how I listen. If you look at your card, it says I'm giving a Buchla Music Easel Masterclass. And I'd love to, and so I'm sorry, I know you all brought your easels. And I'd love to do a masterclass with you all. So where does that leave us? What am I going to talk about? I think that's the definition of uncertainty. Yeah. Which is a perfect place to start for Buchla. We will be doing as much of both of those as we can, but I would like to start out with some context. And the context is, Mike, I'm from the Bay Area and I'm a hippie.
Yay!
West Coast all the way. So there will be anecdotes, there will be aphorisms, there will be metaphor. Okay, and we're going to start with a metaphor. Came to me the other day when I was walking, as I do every morning in the woods. On my way to the woods, there was a frigging rainbow. And that's when I realized, here's the metaphor, folks. Wavefolding is like a rainbow. And the more I thought about it, it might not be a metaphor. So, Sue didn't want me to walk away from this podium. That's very weird. Okay, so, rainbow, sun, me, water droplets. Water droplets, zoom. Here's a single water droplet. Okay, detail water droplet. Rays of sun come down. They hit the back of the water droplet and they bend. They fold in on themselves and come out at a different angle, revealing the rainbow. Okay. Wavefolding, oscilloscope, sine wave. Push the sine wave up against its rails and it folds back in on itself. With each fold, it adds another harmonic, another color of the sonic timbral rainbow. Okay, with me? So, is it a metaphor or is it just the same thing on a different part of the electromagnetic spectrum, right? And to my understanding, Don Buchla came up with wavefolding. And if I'm wrong, I do know that he was probably the first person to use it in a musical way with his Buchla 259 complex waveform generator that came out in the early 70s, and it's the timbre knob. The timbre, you know, it could be the rainbow knob. Okay, so I have been always fascinated with wavefolding. I mean, I could sit there and watch the scope and listen to it. And I'm sure we're all familiar with it. By the way, it's great to be with you all. I was talking with Thomas Fang at 4MS last night, and he said how wonderful it is to be with the tribe. Unlike NAMM, where it's all over the place, here it's the tribe. So, thank you. Wavefolding simply, and now you'll have to also let me know if this gets too loud. I'll do a quick sound check. Are we good? Louder?
Yeah, louder.
Okay. Okay, you speak my language. So, the beauty of wavefolding is here's the sine wave, which of course has no energy, because it's just the fundamental, and then it folds on itself. And the beauty of that for me is, as it's folding, depending on the room and the reflections, you get some of this weird little phasing and certain harmonics, like, you know, find their standing waves or cancel each other out. So it feels like it's organic and always in motion, which I think, you know, I've devoted myself to trying to understand Don Buchla's early brain that came up with all of this stuff. And I think he was really about making electronic sound as organic and natural as possible. And the other, you know, I mean, he was a musician. You know, we know he was like, you know, NASA rocket scientist, but he was also a musician. As is Joe DeVell, who's carrying on the tradition for Buchla USA. He's a just kick-butt percussionist and helped. He was one of the associates in Buchla and Associates. And he's, so this is a sidebar. He designed the new the new 208C, which is this, right here. Anyway, music, electronics, natural, organic. And so let me just play with wavefolding for a moment. So I'm looping it, just so there's, you know what I'm doing. No way. Of course, uncertainty, never a dull moment. Okay, we'll speed things up here. Let's make sure. Oh, I see what I did. Okay, thank you for listening to that first one. Take two. Okay. So, and as you probably heard that, this time it's going to be different just because it's going to be different with the folding. For a while. Okay, never mind. Did you hear the shifts? I mean, that's the point I was making. And this reminds me, there are three people I want to talk about today. This is the how I listen part of the lecture. that have, I mean, it's more than 3, but these 3 hopefully will stick in your mind and you already know, have influenced me deeply. The first one is Eliane Redic, who, from France, and 87, still alive, as is Morton Subotnick, at 87, still alive. So the takeaway is, if you fall in love with modular at a young age, you will live a long life.
Yay!
And as hopefully you all know Eliane's work, it is very slow and glacier and spacious, and she was working in the early years with a ART 2500 and was working with the 1047 multi-mode filter, resonant filter, and was just like sitting, you thought I was going slow. Eliane can, her pieces, grow and transform over an hour long, and it's just beautiful how she finds all these different sonic universes and comings and goings inside these filtered sounds. The second person is Pauline Oliveros, who was at the San Francisco Tape Music Center with Mort and Ramon Sender and Todd Barton, Douglas Leedy, Steve Reich, Terry Riley, Lamont Young. I mean, they are the seeds of what we're doing. And there's these beautiful pictures of Pauline, first with these nice giant test oscillators, then later with the Buchla 100. And she has a whole philosophy called deep listening that I'm guessing you all might know. And part of the deep listening is just, the whole thing is listening to your environment at all times and trying to listen as deeply as you can. I mean, some of the early exercises, which is one I do every day, is I walk in the woods. I live in Ashland, Oregon. It's a rural area with mountains and trees. And so I can walk out my back door and go into a woods. And what I do is ask myself the questions she asks of people, which is, what's the farthest away sound you can hear? And for me, it's like, the freeway is like a couple miles. And so some days I can hear it really well, depending on the atmosphere and density and angle and what's going on there. Other days it's very subdued. But so I put my ears out to try to make that the most prominent thing in my soundscape. And then the next question is, what's the closest sound? And the easy one is my feet on, the terra firma. But then you spend a little more time and you start hearing your breath. And if I've been walking really hard, I can start to even hear my heart. And then the next question, what's in the mid-range? Oh, birds. I must be coming up on a creek, wind in the trees. And doing this, I realized, part of what we as electronic musicians need to know about and do is mixing. And this is the perfect teacher for mixing because it gives you, spatially what's happening, is this blue jay is going rack, rack, and the woodpecker's going da 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 da, and the doves are going ooh, ooh, and so spatially I'm learning a lot of stuff. The jet, commercial jets that come over, they're part of the soundscape too, and the question to ask is, when did I first hear that jet? It's like, I guess it's been in the soundscape for a bit, and then it gets really, really loud. And then I often play the game, once I've identified it, is how long can I listen to it before it, at what point does the LFO envelope run out on the jet, right? So there's just tons to be learned mixing-wise from just those 3 simple exercises. And addendum, walking in the woods it's a composition, and you learn about sculpting sound, we'll throw in Curtis Rhodes, who teaches at UC Santa Barbara, and has written the Bible on computer music. But he also wrote a really good book called, his most recent book, and probably most accessible, because I'm not a nerd, so it was great to see this. It's called Composing Electronic Music. And in there he talks about compositional techniques, which he says are multi-scale. So you have things happening at different time scales. Things are going faster, things are going slower. You know, it becomes sculpting and mixing and matching time scales, which is a great walk in the woods. Or even this morning, you don't have woods around here, but I wandered all around here, and you know, it has its own time scales and soundscapes that I can learn from. And thirdly, David Tudor, who worked with John Cage, of course, and he built these strange little sound machines and boxes and used guitar pedals and would feed them all back, and built this beautiful matrix so he could send 20 pedals and boxes he made in there and control the feedback. Right? In fact, the piece is called Tone Burst, and if you haven't heard it, and you're definitely into the more noise-oriented things, it is freaking tour de force. So David Tudor, Tone Burst. But he talks about these modules, and he says, I don't try to make them do what I want them to do. I try to listen to what they want to do. And that's, you know, the third component of my listening, and that's where, in some respect or in resonance, my Krill patch came from. Is I wanted to see what the Buchla would do, and it took a very long I didn't know I was going towards a Krill patch. It was just daily experimentation for a very, very long time. And one day, the rainbow showed up, right? Three elements happened. And the Buchla, the machine, the instrument started dialoguing back to me without me touching it. And it had breadth, and it had variety, and yes, somebody said uncertainty, right? This is Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. We can talk about that later. So, two patches I'd like to look at today. Excuse me. Is the first one is by Charles Seeholzer, who is actually over in the Buchla booth, one of the presenters there. He's an old friend. I knew him in Oregon, and then he moved to Washington, and now he's in Minneapolis working with Buchla. It's a feedback patch. And of course, feedback is the ultimate uncertainty. You never know when it's coming. And so let's see if I can get some feedback going. And then the brilliant patch that Charles came up with is using the envelope follower to open the gate. So it becomes a classic governor or flywheel, if you will, in a feedback scenario, right? Feedback. Sorry, sidebar. I know I'm talking to the tribe, but just in case. Feedback term was coined by, why am I going to forget his first name? Norbert Wiener.
Norbert Wiener, yeah.
Norbert Wiener, thank you. And, you know, he came up with the, you know, little diagrams of feedback, and that's what Beebe and Louis Barron used to build feedback modules for Forbidden Planet in 1956, and actually they built these modules before that. It wasn't for 1956 for Forbidden Planet, but you can surely hear the work. And the thing, I got to spend a whole day and evening with Beebe, and I was asking, you know, what was that like? You know, what did these modules they were tube modules. Man, you do not want to try to build these at home, or you will electrocute yourself. But she said, we just read Norbert's book, and we went, okay, Louis, I can build this just from the schematics in Norbert's book. So he starts building a module, and they build it, and they plug it in, yikes, and she said, it was really disappointing. No sound. And they let the tubes warm up, and they started glowing, and they finally seemed like they were at max. Still no sound. After a half hour, they just said, oh, heck with it, and went on to do what they did, which they had a big tape music studio that John Cage actually rented for one of his pieces. And about 3 hours later, she said they heard a sound because they left it plugged in. And they went, whoa, okay. So it had taken that long for the circuit feedback. And then, so we turned the tape recorders on, and it just stayed at that tone for a bit, and then it started like raising in pitch, and then it started fibrillating and getting weird, sort of like cross-modded strangeness, and then it started going completely berserk into noise, and then it just went and died. Luckily, they got that on tape. And she said, and we couldn't revive it after that. It was done. So that's why they ended up building hundreds of these little feedback modules. Okay. So you will bear with me while I try to find feedback in this. I'm first just going to try to find straight ahead feedback, then I'm going to integrate Charles Seeholzer's sort of control patch for it. Okay. Oops. This is where that whole uncertainty comes from, right? There it is. I'm taking the question was, what am I feeding back? I'm taking the main audio out and feeding it to the auxiliary in. There's an aux in that I can put a microphone, a guitar, MP3 player, back in the day, tape deck, for aux in to then process through the easel. So I'm coming from the external in, but I'm coming from the master main output going back into it. So it's the audio circuit that's feeding back. So now what I'm doing is, there's an envelope follower. Don was really fond of envelope followers. There's envelope followers on the 206, the 297, dedicated 130 envelope followers, 230, 230E envelope followers. They were very
I think Morton Subotnick encouraged him because Morton was a wind player, so he wanted that. So,
good point.
I'm sure it was in there to begin with, but Morton, I'm sure, asked for more.
Absolutely. If you didn't hear what he was saying, is Morton Subotnick probably, pioneered and encouraged the envelope follower. In fact,
being
yes,
a clarinetist.
Being a clarinetist, but also when he finally
this vocal.
is to make the vocal sounds is where I was going. As for Silver Apples of the Moon, he has a microphone going into the translator that then goes into the 130, and he can actually create pulses and CVs by going, and he would record those onto tape, his vocals, and then send them back and turn them into control voltage as pulses. So, okay, great. So let's see if we can tame this with Charles's. So I'm coming out of the envelope follower and going into the VCA, basically, of what's going on. And then, actually, I'm going to invert that to be used later, and now I'm going into the VCA. So now I have the direct signal controlling the feedback. Take a little
so the
more.
signal is controlling the master volume?
Yeah. See if we can find it again. there's some reverb on this. I find reverb really helps in feedback land. So now rather than before when I just did this, it started growing and growing and you couldn't see me, but I was like, finally took it out. So now it's just sort of like found its little equilibrium. And now, I also sent that to an inverter. So now the inverter is coming out, and I'm going to send that to Timbre, Wavefolding, our friend, which will be coming up on. Now I've added the other oscillator, so we can hear the wavefolding on that.
So far, there's only one oscillator.
No, right now I brought in the other oscillator. This one.
Oh, okay.
This is the other oscillator, but that's the inverted feedback messing with the wavefolding. If that makes sense. This is getting.
Can you draw the patch?
Is this a?
No, it's not.
They can get a new one.
All happy to come up here afterwards, or if you want me to draw it out for you, I'll do that. But yeah. So what you're hearing now is just feedback at equilibrium. The feedback is opening, being a governor to the VCA. And now I'm going to bring in, take that out. There's two oscillators on the easel. That's just the straight ahead sine tone coming out. And I've taken the feedback and inverted it, and now I'm sending it to the wave folder of that sound. And now I'm need to bring in the feedback. And now going to pitch of that. And pitch of the mod oscillator. And finally, I'm now going to balance, modulate, or ring modulate the feedback. That's the feedback. That's just all feedback and ring modulated feedback. That's a regular oscillator with, with wavefolding. So, clear as mud. So what I love about that is the uncertainty. And I love the fact that, 1 millimeter, can be, if you're in performance, life or death, basically. Because 1 millimeter throw can just take it, well, with this patch, he's clamped it down enough that you can really push it. But if, I was in Rome a couple of years ago performing solo easel, and I made the bold choice to end the program by just a straight feedback patch, no governors, no anything. And it was a small room, just a little bigger than this. And the feedback came in, and which was great, because I thought, oh shit, not ever going to come in. And it came in, and it hit the standing wave of the room. It was just like, whoa, okay, now what do I do? So I looped it, and really went out on the edge, and looped, came down, made adjustments that I had no idea what were going to happen when I come back, and I came back and it was a harmonic, and everything just went bigger. And so I just kept doing this until the whole room was just going, and then went, okay. I mean, I pushed it like hundreds of percent further than I ever thought I could. And so I was lucky. It could have been I moved the knob and everything phase canceled and it's silence. You know, that's the thing. But I love that risk, which brings me to this next patch. First of all, I guess let's talk Krell. How many know of the Krell patch? Okay, good. Yeah, thank you. Okay. So the whole idea of a Krell patch is that it's self-generating and it, you know, everything is like different and changing. It hacks and decays. Some things fade in. Some things go da-da-da-da-da. Timbre's changing. Modulation's changing. And you set it up and walk away and listen. And so this next patch, though, is what I call pointillism. Excuse me. And in a way, it's a variation on the Krell, in that it's no longer self-generating. And it was made for the easel. And it's a patch, again, it took me a long time. Once I found it, it was like, oh, duh. That seemed simple, but you know, I don't know how many months it took to get to that. Oh, by the way, you all can, oh, what the heck. Just don't touch the comb down here, but this is what it looks like on the old program card. And I'll pass the card around. And what you will see, if you want to read what's going on there, is random is going to pitch of both oscillators, random's going to modulation, pressure. So every time I touch a key, everything changes. And I can fade that in with, it's body capacitance. I start with my fingernail, which means you won't hear anything, and then I add more skin. That's the other beauty. I love being connected to the electrons. There's just no way about that. That's cool. And so, body capacitance, I'm completing the circuit, right? But every time I touch it, I have no frigging idea what I'm about to get. And this is the way I start all my concerts, unless there are children in the audience, in which case I ask a brave volunteer to come up and move all the sliders on the easel with the sound down. And then I pull the volume in and work from that. So in lieu of no children in this audience. What you heard prior to this was just the easel in its regular habitat. So I better undo this. Now I'm switching it into read the program card, which I can't take out because it's powered on. You can come see it later. So it's the iProgram card. So the little patch card that's going around, the iProgram card basically holds 30 of those. So I can have 30 different, and I love this. Don and Alan Strange never called them patches. They called them instrument definitions, which I love because, at least patches or presets, here's another good word, 1985 with DX7 and Accordion 1, we get presets, and you can sit there all day and scroll through presets. But an instrument definition suggests you've learned to play this instrument. So it's not a matter of scrolling through and people go, oh, it only holds 30 presets. Well, maybe it holds 30 instruments. And maybe you need to know how to play the learn how to play the tuba and use multiphonics and bang on it and get everything you can out of a tuba, which might take more than a day. So this is what you're about to hear is that patch I'm passing around. And let's make sure I can do this. So I wish you could see this, but you can watch it on the video. All right. Okay. So. I am now going to press the exact same key. Now I'm going to hit it flat on so it has a sharp attack. Now I'm going to add some reverb. Hope my frigging looper works. The beauty of this patch too is like now I can build up complex textures in a matter of seconds. So that's, I call it pointillism. The reason being is, I guess, the pointillists were like surrealist painters, like particularly Seurat, and pointillism is a form of, a way of painting where you have a wide-ranging palette, you take a dab, and you put it on with the brush at one angle, you change the hue or the color or something, and you put another dab right next to it, different angle, different density, so they're catching the light at different angles. And you build these up. It's not unlike if you go out and look at a tree, the bark from far away looks brown, but you get up like that and there's like green and red and orange and all sorts of colors that are going to make that brown. That's sort of pointillism. And so this is like each dab is going to be a different timbre, texture, hue. Well, that's pretty much it. Happy to talk about anything you'd like to ask me about, or if you have questions about anything. Life, what it all means. I'm a hippie, so I can answer that.
Were you at Cal Arts?
No, I wasn't at Cal Arts. No, I was in the Bay Area. I did know Serge in the day when he was at Haight-Ashbury. He built my first encounter with an easel was with Douglas Leedy. Some of you may know. He was at San Francisco Tape Music Center, and Don had given him an easel. And when I first met Doug in 1976, one day he said, "Here, go upstairs and play with this." And it was an easel. I didn't know what it was, and I didn't come down for 3 days. All of a sudden, there were timbres and sounds. And so I said, "Can I buy one?" And he goes, "Well, there's not that many in 1976, and they're 10 grand, which is, the equivalent of $40,000 now. So that wasn't going to happen. But Serge was building the People's synths in the 70s, and so I heard about that, and that still took a chunk of change. Had to hawk the house, but it was worth it. And so, that's where I didn't do CalArts, but did hate Ashbury. Yeah.
Have you used the Arturia Buchla virtual instrument? Do you have any advice on getting the presets for that?
What was the last part?
Any advice on getting beyond the presets for that?
Yes, this is about the Arturia virtual easel. Yeah, what I would say is to get beyond the presets is first take all the effects off. Because what I found, I beta tested that and also did some patches for it. But what I tried to do what I found out is I was, listening to all the patches, and they didn't sound that much different than the Art 2600, and that's because the Arturia paradigm has, the second layer down is like amazing routing and effects and all sorts of stuff. But if you start using those effects, then it sort of becomes that instead of, so the easel, so I started from taking all that off and creating patches that then would, more mimic what I was used to. And so, yeah, I guess that's quote the advice. Yeah?
You had mentioned Douglas Leedy, who did the generative album in Tropical Paradise. Where you knew what instruments he used on that. Was he using easels as part of that, or?
No, he was using a large Buchla 200, I think, right off the bat. In fact, I'm glad you mentioned this. Just like we rehearsed it, right, Chris? Okay. Yes, Douglas Leedy's In Tropical Paradise is a 3-record set, and I actually made an homage patch. This is the easel. And as we go down in octaves, we start to get more into the bird sounds until we're finally at another sort of variation on the Krell patch, as you can see, no hands. And the nice thing is I can control density. So, yeah. Okay. Yes.
John County he asked me if Serge reference coming to this Knobcon.
Is what?
Is going to be at this Knobcon.
Is Serge going to be here? Oh, wow. I hadn't heard that. I mean, he's in Paris.
Yeah, he is.
So, I mean, that would be a long trip. And I played his, there's another one, right. I played his 80th birthday 5 years ago. So he's, 85. I mean, he's right up there. It was a funny thing because it was Serge's birthday and he was in San Francisco and I was playing, and Don was at a performance of Morton Subotnick at Mills that night. So Serge and Don and Mort couldn't all see each other. Yeah.
Just curious, how close can one come to the operation of the easel using conventional signal controls?
How close can someone come using what are conventional?
Yeah, of course.
Sorry to be didactic, the teacher and me just went there. I mean, like Eurorack?
Yeah.
Okay. Close, but for me, the interaction between the keyboard, I mean, you could get there sort of with points and Renee maybe, and some of the other variables, but I just, they don't have the same feel for me. And also, I mean, I've been asked so many times to translate the Krell into Eurorack, and the best way to do it is with maths and a DPO, you know, a lot of the make noise stuff, which is clear. I mean, you know, Tony Rolando pays homage to Buchla. You know, I think the DPO, their oscillator on the back, it says, you know, homage to the 259. And maths is an actual combination of Serge's dual universal slope generator and Don's 281 function generator. So you can get close, but yeah, they're all different, right? You know, it's what it's whatever's going to help you hear and create the music or sounds you want to create.
The keyboard on the easel gives you exactly what?
It gives you body capacitance, pitch. It also can send. So it has pulse, so gate, pressure, pitch, and then it goes into this matrix of banana jacks outputs that you can access and send anywhere. So I mean that's how I was doing that. That's how I'm able with just one, to change everything.
Right, so pressure, pitch, and gate.
Yeah, there you go. Yes?
Yeah, when you were talking about converting a felt pitch to Eurorack, I did just that with making the system. I took your diagram that I saw and used all the modules. I think I added a second voice with the telharmonic and a third with a Verkstadt VCO. And I have the patch written down. Maybe I should send it to somebody to publish it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also, the first patch I made, I created a song with it. I was just wondering if I brought my iPhone up there, would I be able to plug it in and let you hear it?
Sure. Yeah.
Right now?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd love to.
I'd like to play it for you because
Okay.
it's an amazing patch, and it converted over to the make noise really well.
Great. Well, there's some good information. Talk to that man. Other questions? I don't know where we
Yeah, in today's description, you mentioned, as you got more and more complicated, you mentioned sending your feedback path through the ring modulator. My question was, what are you, or are you using?
I was using the at the.
Yeah, what are the two sources?
Sure. In the 208, which is the brains of the easel, the modulation oscillator is the only oscillator that can be ring modulated from an external source.
Oh, so external, and so it's the, what do you call it, the modulation oscillator. And so you just, as you were making the other adjustments, you were just doing that by ear.
Yeah.
I was just curious if you were like deriving this signal from somewhere. Okay, no.
Good question, yeah.
Why did you invert the feedback before throwing it into the Wavefolder?
Just to give it
just cause.
Well, if I just sent it straight out, we would just start also getting it would ramp up, and I don't find that as interesting. As then with it inverted, then I have some more control.
I got it. Okay.
I mean, I'm guessing Charles made that patch, but that's what I don't. Yeah.
So the easel's like a self-contained instrument, right? Still fully modular. I was wondering if there was any other instruments like that you found that you really took to, because a modular system could be anything, right? It could be infinite,
right,
as much as you want. But part of the benefit of the easel is the restriction, which helps foster creativity. Are there any other systems that really work for you similar to that?
The only other systems I work with are like the VCS3 or the Synthy 1. They're basically the same thing, suitcase synths. But I found for me the patch matrix, which is really cool. It's just not part of my synapse. So somehow I just really gravitate towards this. And probably the simplicity for My simple mind. Yes.
I tried to get Don Buchla once to explain to me why he was so adamant to keep CD and audio signals separate.
Yes.
As opposed to the way Serge did.
Right.
Bananas, and Don used bananas for CD and.
Well, I thought it was for like the integrity of the signal. Like the audio signal would not be, you didn't have to ramp it down or up, whatever you have to do. I don't understand the technology of this. I just like playing with it. And then same with the banana, was you didn't have to mess with, you didn't have to compromise the CV. And I think, possibly part of it was back in the day, you could get a lot of like crosstalk or, artifacts or whatever. So, but technology. So I don't know. Yeah.
You talked about being in San Francisco decades ago, and of course that was been a hotbed for a long time, still is. Are there any other hot spots today that we should try to keep our ears on?
Sure, Portland, Oregon. I mean, there's more, there's just tons of innovation going on there. I mean, everything, what? Folktet, Lombard, 4MS, Maleco, I'm sorry if I'm forgetting half the others that are up there, retro mechanical. I mean, it goes on and on. I bet there's at least 20 builders in Portland, and they're all innovating. Berlin, Barcelona, and of course other places, Asheville, North Carolina. But I mean, there's not 20 builders in Asheville, but there are a lot of builders in Berlin and Barcelona. Okay, I don't know how we're doing on time.
You're good.
I'm good? Okay. So, yeah.
See, the defining feature of the punctuation patch is really your ability to do the strokes as you described on the painting, right?
Yeah.
So, like, what do you look for when you say, do you think I want to make this patch this way and then start building it? What was your, what's your drive behind building that?
Right, the question is, what was my driver behind building that patch? Was it something I set out, we're talking about the Pointillism patch, was it something I set out to do? Boy, once again, it's so far back in there, and for me, I'm always exploring every day, so I don't know that I knew I wanted change. I don't know that it was, I knew the specifics of that, so it was something I sort of discovered, along the way.
So it shaped itself up?
Yeah.
To some extent.
Yeah.
I enjoyed hearing you on the new Buchla Source of Uncertainty podcast. So that was cool. So maybe people who aren't hip to that should know. And are there other online interviews, with you?
Other online interviews besides Source of Uncertainty podcast? Yeah, there's Modular
Modcast.
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's that. I did something for Mac Pro Video, or no, for Ask Audio. I don't know. I think if you go to my site, toddbarton.com, and just look up interviews and reviews, there's, and then you dive.
And last January, I interviewed you for Under the Big Tree as well.
There we go.
And so that's up there as well. YouTube/Under the Big Tree.
Under the Big Tree.
Yeah.
YouTube.
And this video will be there within the next couple of days, if anyone wants to be able to watch the hands close up.
Thanks, Nick.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hawk and Continuum.
Hawk and Continuum, yeah.
Have you tried the Buchla with that, or do you think that would add a different dimension of playability compared to the easel keyboard?
It probably would, yeah, especially, yeah, because the Hawk and Continuum, I mean, The engine under that is by Ed Egan. Yeah, Egan Matrix, and it's really deep, and it's sort of patterned on the VCS3 or the EMS 100, which makes it very, very deep. And I did work with the Knobcon for a while, but again, it's like to get it to do what I wanted was so much programming, For Ed, he lives and breathes it, and he's beautiful at it. And all the presets are for the most part all designed for keyboard players and tonal stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it will go like amazing places, but I just, again, I need analog, I need sliders and knobs. I can't program. There, you've heard it there first. No programming. Okay. Except, Mort Sabatnik was telling me he and Don and everyone was saying what we're building is an analog computer for sound.
Mm-hmm.
And I found the most amazing back in the 50s and the early 60s in Berkeley, there was a company called Donner, I think. They were making portable analog computers, which would be the equivalent of, our laptops. But they were almost the same footprint as the easel. And they had this huge banana array. And above it, they had switches and pots. And so it's like, well, duh. That's what the 208 is. It's banana matrix, switches and pots. Don added the sliders. I didn't ever see sliders on analog computers. But there's some beautiful pictures of these, because I was wondering, where do you come up with that sort of banana matrix? And also, all those banana jacks were like, well, for surplus, and it's probably why they ended up in the analog computers, and so there was probably like tons of those around in the Bay Area in the 50s and early 60s. Possibly, a way of getting inexpensive stuff. Any more questions? Yeah.
Do you have any releases or albums coming up?
I do. The question is, do I have any releases or albums? The next one up to bat is probably in the next month. It's from Flag Day Recordings. They're on Bandcamp, but Flag Day, it'll be a CD. I'm using Hordike, Buchla, what else? Some Surge, I think. And also I've gone back to the one digital thing I do get is a program called MetaSynth, M-E-T-A-S-Y-N-T. Everyone thinks I'm saying medicine or something when I say it. MetaSynth, which Eric Wenger created, and it's, he brought it out like in 1999, 2000. You can actually, it reads visuals, okay? Each pixel is its own oscillator. So, once again, tactile visual, no programming required. But yeah, so I used some MetaSynth to process some of my Buchla and Hordike. So yeah, Flight Day recordings in the next 3 or 4 weeks. Thanks for asking. Okay, well, oops, one more. Yeah.
It might be a loaded question, but how important do you think interface influences you versus the sound of the synth that you're using? Do you think are they about equal, do you think, or is it, can you be more inspired by the interface of the synth, maybe not sound as good, but the interface of using it causes you to use it more because of that?
That's a good question. I mean, the only interface I sort of use is this one, and when I'm at my Buchla 200 clone, I love all of that, and its interface is a 216, which is very similar. And at the Hordike, there's, I mean, and you could have interfaces, but for me, it's all about the knobs. You know? And so, I mean, I can go down, and it's about the sound. I mean, the sound of the three I just mentioned are so completely different and take me so completely different places. You know, it wasn't quite Shakespeare, but it was Shakespeare's time. Comparisons are odious, or as Shakespeare said through Dogberry, comparisons are odorous. You know, so yeah. I hope that answered your question. Okay, one more question, and then
I've got just a quick one, because you just mentioned Hordike. What of his work do you find interesting? I mean, what hardware? Just curious.
The question is, what of Rob Hordike's synthesizers
you find inspiring?
I find inspiring.
Whatever.
Well, he builds panels like Serge used to, right? So you buy a panel and it usually has three.
Oh yeah, I wasn't around for that. I remember when he was doing 5U.
Yeah, I mean, these are 5U. These are 5U panels.
Oh, but they're much
yeah, he no longer does modules.
Oh, okay.
And
Gotcha,
so you have to, and like 4 panels is like a system, is a complete system. So what I love about Hordike is this, again, it's a complete system. And his brain, I think, I mean, he's right up there with Don and Serge, as far as I'm concerned. And he has a completely personal paradigm about this. And his love of sound, you know, okay, this is highly reductive, but, you know, for me, sort of Don's center was uncertainty, you know, on how to get randomness and, of course, the backfold, okay, and wavefolding. That's sort of the central where he's coming. Let's call it uncertainty, which is randomness, chaos, that sort of. Serge was, in a way, you know, the dual universal slope generator is like the ultimate control voltage feedback thing, because you can patch that. I mean, the dual universal slope generator can be at least 10 different things, from an oscillator to a filter to a subharmonic generator to an envelope generator. I mean, just, you know, and for me, that's where Serge was coming from, making these multi-dimensional modules. For Rob Hordike, he was working with some really weird noise, analog noise chip, and, you know, he's, you know, told me where he came from was trying to get as much out of noise as possible. So the rumbler is the, you know, sort of central to the Hordike paradigm, and that all came from his mentor, Jan Borman, who, if you haven't, there's another person to go look up, Jan Borman, Dutch composer, amazing breadth and depth. And he's still alive at 90-something.
What's his name?
Jan, Jan Borman, Boerman, I believe. That'll at least get you to Google and they might correct me. But Jan was working with just pure noise and bandpass filters in the 50s and finding all these universes. And that's also where Rob. So hope that answered your question.
Thanks. Very good. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you all very much.